Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Dr. T.S. Jhazaria and our today's topic is systemic lupus erythematosus. Systemic lupus erythematosus SLE is a systemic disease that means that can affect your whole body, right from your skin, your lungs, your heart, your kidney, your vessels, your joints, your brain, your GI system, your immune system, your eyes, right? And also, since SLE is a very big and important topic as far as examinations are concerned, so we'll study this topic in 4 parts to keep little short and interesting. So this is part 1 and here we will talk on the introduction, pathogenesis and pathology of SLE. The reference for today's lecture is 20th edition of Harrison's Internal Medicine textbook. So let's talk about introduction. Systemic lupus erythematosus is an autoimmune disease in which organs and cells undergoes damage. And this damage is initially mediated by tissue-binding autoantibodies and immune complexes. Most patients have autoantibodies present few years before clinical symptoms appear. In United States, the highest prevalence of SLE is in African American and Afro-Caribbean women, whereas the lowest prevalence is in white men. To understand better, lupus means whoop and erythematosus means reddening of skin. Why I am showing you here this whoop and red butterfly? Because the typical sign of SLE is butterfly shaped malar rash that looks like a wolf bite on skin. So the way I remember this disease is, imagine a wolf that attacks women. Why women? Because 9 out of 10 patients are women. So after introduction, let's talk about the pathophysiology of SLE. So how lupus affects the organs? Well, usually the immune system protects the body against invaders, but as we know that lupus is an autoimmune disease, which means immune cells attacking the tissues and cells they're supposed to protect. Like other disease, SLE is also one result of genetic and environmental factors. Let's talk about this handsome med student here. He is having susceptibility genes for SLE that makes him susceptible to develop SLE. So an individual who is having susceptibility genes and also exposed to UV radiation, an environmental risk factor for SLE that causes serious damage to the DNA of that cell, and that cell undergoes programmed cell death or apoptosis. That dead cell produces excess amount of tiny apoptotic bodies, and these apoptotic bodies exposed in the cell including the components of nucleus like DNA and histone proteins. Apart from UV radiation, the other risk factors for SLE are sex hormones like estrogen, medications like procainamide, hydralazine, isoniazid, smoking, and some viruses, especially Epstein-Barr virus. Please take a note, during the reproductive age, the women to men ratio for SLE is 9:1. During non-reproductive years, this ratio is 3:1. So immune cells treat these nucleus components as foreign agents like nuclear antigens and produces antibodies against them like ANA, anti-nuclear antibodies, right? Since in autoimmune disease like SLE, the immune system is dysregulated with less effective clearance of immune complexes. That's why these antigen antibody complexes build up in the body and that causes immune responses. On this stage, if it's not intervened or treated, that will lead to chronic inflammation and phagocytosis and destruction of tissues, cells and organs, and that results in symptoms and destruction of organs. So with this table we can easily understand that how susceptibility genes and immune system like innate and acquired immunity, immune complexes and apoptotic cells, low level of complement components, along with environmental risk factors like UV light, gender, Epstein-Barr virus, silica dust and smoking makes an individual susceptible to develop SLE. As we know that dendritic cells process and present the antigens to T cells, that's why there is activation of complement cascade and stimulation of B cells to produce autoantibodies. Because of this there is inflammation and that results in skin rash, nephritis, arthritis, leukopenia, CNS disorder, pericarditis and clotting abnormalities. In this scenario, if this condition is not intervened or treated, then that will lead to chronic inflammation and chronic oxidized damage to vessels and organs and ended up with renal failure, atherosclerosis, pulmonary fibrosis, and stroke. So these are a few important points, as we already discussed that gene polymorphism, transcription, and epigenetic combinations influence the immune response to external and internal environment. And when such responses are too high and too prolonged or inadequately regulated, then yes, of course, autoimmune diseases are favored. Very importantly, female sex is permissive for SLE development with the evidence of hormone effects, genes on X chromosome, and epigenetic differences. Also, females of many mammalian species make higher antibody responses than males. So this table is very important not only for examinations but also for diagnosis and treatment of SLE patients. So I'll mark all the important one. So please take note of that. So we will start from ANA, that is anti-nuclear antibodies. This is the best screening test for SLE, also highly sensitive but not specific, right? As it's present in other autoimmune disease also. Then anti-dsDNA. So high titers are SLE specific and associated with disease activity like nephritis and vasculitis. Anti-SM, anti-Smith autoantibody. This is specific for SLE, right? And it's more common in blacks and Asians than whites. Then anti-Rho and anti-La, that is SSA and SSB, as we talked about these in Sjogren syndrome. So anti-Rho, that is SSA, is not specific for SLE but is associated with the Sika syndrome, also predisposed to subacute cutaneous lupus and neonatal lupus with congenital heart block, and associated with the decreased risk for nephritis. Anti-La SSB, that is also associated with the anti-Rho and decreased risk for nephritis. Anti-Stone is more frequent in drug-induced lupus than in SLE. Anti-phospholipid autoantibody, right? So there are 3 tests available for this, and it's predisposed to clotting, fetal loss, and thrombocytopenia. And anti-neuronal, that includes the anti-glutamate receptor, right? So this is associated with the active CNS lupus. And lastly, we'll talk about the anti-ribosomal P. Okay, so this correlates with the depression and psychosis due to CNS lupus. So this is very important. Please take note of this. Also, please take a note that drinking alcohol, like 2 glasses of a wine a week or half of an alcoholic drink daily, decrease the risk for SLE. Environmental factors like smoking, infection, especially Epstein-Barr virus, UV rays, occupational exposure to silica increases the risk for SLE. Women who use oral contraceptives are at increased risk for SLE. As we know that estradiol binds to the receptors of B and T cells and increasing their activation and survival, and that favors the prolonged immune response. So after pathogenesis and etiology, we will talk about the pathology of SLE. So generally in skin biopsies, as there is deposition of immunoglobulins at the dermal epidermal junction, injury to basal keratinocytes and inflammation which is dominated by the T lymphocytes in the dermal epidermal junction and around the blood vessels and dermal appendages. Since this finding is suggestive for SLE but not specific. And in renal biopsies, generally the individuals who are having the class 3, 4 and 5 lupus nephritis, they should be treated with aggressive immunosuppressants as they are at increased risk of end-stage renal disease, that is ESRD. And especially people with class 1 and 2 lupus nephritis and with extensive irreversible changes, then treatment is not recommended. Lastly, in this SLIC criteria, that is Systemic Lupus International Collaborating Clinics, a diagnosis of SLE can be established on the basis of renal histology in the presence of lupus autoantibodies without the meeting of additional criteria totaling 4. So this is the WHO classification of lupus nephritis and SLE patients, and as classified into 6 classes, so we will talk one by one. So class 1, that is minimal mesangial glomerulonephritis, which is histologically normal on light microscope, but we can appreciate the mesangial deposits by electron microscopy. Class 2, that is mesangial proliferative lupus nephritis, that completely respond to treatment with corticosteroids. Class 3, that is focal proliferative nephritis, and that completely and successfully respond to treatment with high doses of corticosteroids. And class 4, diffuse proliferative nephritis, that is the most severe and most common lupus nephritis, and treated with the corticosteroids and immunosuppressant drugs. Class 5, that is membranous nephritis, and also characterized by extreme edema and protein loss. And class 6, that is glomerulosclerosis. Also, histologic abnormalities in blood vessels may also determine the therapy, as patterns of vasculitis are not specific for SLE, but they may indicate the active disease. Like leukocytoclastic, that is inflammation of the small vessels, this vasculitis is very common in SLE patients. Also, lymph node biopsies can be done to rule out infections or malignancies. So thanks for watching, and this is all about the introduction, pathogenesis, etiology and pathology of SLE. In part 2, we will talk about the clinical manifestations of SLE. Since the video is already uploaded in the rheumatology playlist, so please watch it and do subscribe the channel for future videos. Thank you.